Hello, Grey Knight community. My name is DJ. I'm a content creator here with Tim's Nation, and I specialize in Grey Knights and Necrons as my primary factions, as well as a couple other armies that I play here on the channel. Today, I wanted to create this video because, one, for all my 40k fanatics out there who know, this is going to be a list preview for the battle report that I'm going to be playing here soon against Lane with the Grey Knights in the recent release codex. In the last couple of weeks, I have been able to spend some time on some of these different forums. That's why I'm posting this video out here as well, to kind of look over a whole bunch of stuff with the Grey Knights and put together some information. In my last battle report, I tried to kind of go into an old school style of how I played Grey Knights at the beginning of the edition and had great success with them. But with how much damage output has changed and we've gone out of Index Hammer, that style, that MSU style, does not work the same, as I found out in our matchup with the Death Guard. So now, after looking at some stuff and reading some research and looking into it all, I haven't had a lot of time to be able to actually comment back. And also, sometimes with apps and using those things, I'll read something and then I'll go, oh, wait, does it work that way? And then go to check the app and check the book and check different pieces of it to confirm and go, oh, wow, that works that way. And come back and I can't find the original post. So for this, I want to say thank you to all of the people out there in the Grey Knight community. It's definitely a great community to be a part of and to hear all the different information. So for me, this is kind of a bringing it all together and trying to start looking at things for a competitive aspect. Now, for me personally, my style of play, I like to try to look into books and find the little niches. I don't like to just go with the meta builds, try and find the niches. But right now, Grey Knights, there really isn't a meta build. There's a bunch of things that we all have kind of agreed upon are very powerful and very good, but it's going to take a while before we can actually say it's a meta build. Just based on statistics, you can't, things that we think are great right off rip may not be so good as we start to implement them in games and play them on the table. But after reading a lot of that and seeing all that and not being able to comment on it, I wanted to kind of focus this video into, okay, here's a lot of the data I've picked up. Here's some things that I've read into in my readings and what I've found, and kind of push it all together and see what you guys think. See where the direction is going, what you guys have liked and not liked, and just all around take the criticism and figure it out. Because first and foremost, got to figure out how to play Grey Knights competitively and see how they're going to win and see how they can do this. And then we can start finding all the little gems in the coal mine, as it would be, to build this up. If you are a fan of the channel, you've been around for a while, as always, thank you for all the constant support. I appreciate you guys. That's why Lane and I do this on a regular basis. That's why we're here. That's why I'm continuing to do this. But I also wanted to give a shout out to all those great content creators. Hopefully you can get a chance to have some conversations with you guys soon in the comment section where I can focus that back in and try and kind of figure out what some of these things are that you guys may have seen that maybe I'm missing with these steps. So for right now, let's start talking about the army, get over into the list, and make ourselves a video. So first and foremost, I'm playing the Banishers Detachment. In my last battle report, I said I was going to go into the Hallowed Ground, the Hallowed Conclave, the Terminator-based detachment. But the more and more I looked into it, I feel like the Terminator detachment kind of falls subject to what happens with usually one detachment in all codexes. They have a focus point on a specific unit. World Eaters in the 8-bound, Necron's Annihilation Legion with some of the destroyer units, and it ends up lacking some aspects of it. While some of those detachments might have good aspects that could win, in other aspects, some of those detachments are relatively boring and don't seem a lot of fun to personally play. For me, while I'll say like some of the ones that I named are probably not competitive, the Hallowed Ground one, the Hallowed Conclave might have some competitive nature in there with some of the stratagems. But generally, I looked at it and I couldn't find anything that I was like, man, this really looks like a lot of fun to play. The Banishers detachment not only looks powerful, but it looks like a lot of fun to play and could be up there as one of the more competitive choices for one stratagem and one stratagem alone, and that is Shadows of Anarch, or whatever it's called now. It's Mista Deimos. Mista Deimos ended up over here in this detachment, and that stratagem is so powerful, it literally can be something to run the book, or run the entire detachment around. Then as you go into it more and you look at other stratagems, you look at the enhancements, and then consider the units they can go on, It all comes together as just a lot of viable options for a detachment to be able to play it out of. Even the detachment rule is very strong, being able to give us sustained or lethal hits with no negative impact if we fail the leadership check at the beginning of the fight phase. So that's there's a lot out of that too. Not to mention the fact with chaos being popular right now. It is a popular choice in the meta. Many different armies having a strat in your back pocket that goes one command point, I get anti-chaos 4 up, could be very good. Think about it into Chaos Knights when suddenly your bolters, instead of wounding on 6, are wounding on 4s. Again, not game breaking, but being able to have a perk like that that's in your back pocket could be interesting in some of those matchups. Now, for today, we did go heavier into what I believe is going to be more competitive. So this is something to scrutinize. Be polite, as always, please. But I definitely expect a lot more scrutiny and saying, hey, you know what, DJ, you're really overshooting yourself here. You're wasting points here. Hit me with the math hammer. Hit me with that. My math hammer is a little bit different than some on how I look at things. So I would love to have that discussion and see, because one of the great things about 40K, there's a lot of different angles you can look at something for. And I definitely would love to hear some output on it. Let's look at the list and see what we're taking here today. All right, here's our Grey Knights Banishers detachment coming in at 1,980 points. Now, I did take 3 enhancements with this army because as I messed with the points, I didn't see anything that I really liked to just where the points laid. I had points left over and there wasn't really anything to cut to change some of the synergies that I'm looking for. So instead, I chose to go with putting the 3 enhancements out there since I have the points. So we'll talk about those more for each of the units, but I just kind of want to throw that out there now. So when you're wondering, well, wait, why did you take this enhancement? Some of the enhancements were a last minute kind of addition where it's like, I liked it. And then when I looked at the points, I go, okay, let's go ahead and go with it. So for this attachment, as I mentioned, at the beginning of our fight phase, we can make a leadership check with a Grey Knights unit. And if we pass that check, we can pick if that unit will have either sustained or lethal hits for that turn. So it's really nice, especially with some of these, with our high volume of attacks, to be able to trigger into that, especially with some of our Paladin units. All right, so let's get started. So first, we have an 8-man squad of Paladins. So we're going to be taking 2 squads of Terminators, 1 5-man and 1 8-man, both led by characters. The 8-man squad is going to have 3 side cannons, the Apothecary, and the Ancients. Now, mind you, for those who don't know, I do mine a little differently because I'm not going to break a bunch of banners. So this squad, there is only 1 character with a Nemesis Warding Stave, and since Nemesis Warding Staves mean literally nothing now, that is going to be my Ancient banner. It's a banner that's just missing a flag. So, and this squad, if you'll notice, is being led by Lord Calidor Drago. This is because since Drago is gone, I'm sad that Drago is gone. So he is going to be where he is meant to be, and that is leading a squad of Paladins as their Paragon. Thought about taking him as Grandmaster, but we're going to use a Grandmaster as a regular Grandmaster, who's also going to be part of this unit. So for this squad, we have 3 side cannons, 1 on the Ancient, and 2 on the models in the unit. And then we also have a side cannon on the Grandmaster to give us 4 side cannons. The Grandmaster lets us target the unit with a stratagem and reduce it by 1, which is a very, very strong ability for this unit, meaning that we could miss the Deimos or Rapid Ingress with this unit for free. And Rapid Ingress is definitely going to be something we are going to be looking at, hopefully doing quite a bit with some of the units in this detachment. On top of that, having 4 side cannons, he also has the enhancement that gives the squad reroll 1s to shooting. Now, I know a lot of people are against side cannons and really prefer having incinerators. However, I have another unit for the incinerators that they're going to kind of work for it. And honestly, I really do like having the side cannons. As much as the AP1 is tough, but when you deep strike the unit in and you're able to draw a line of sight, you can usually get away from cover to make that AP1 still relevant. And the 2 damage is really nice. On top of it, I don't really want these guys to shoot at the unit they're about to charge. I would prefer they just charge it at 5 attacks apiece, hitting on 2s with that sustained lethal option. I do want these guys to be able to utilize that combat potential and not whittle away guys. In some scenarios, it might be a better aspect for me to charge a unit, not finish it off, and surround the unit so that our opponent has to then decide if they want to attempt to fall back from with the remaining models or stay in combat, in which case the paladins get protected from shooting in most aspects. If our opponent falls back, chances are they're not going to have a 10-inch move. So that means I could then misdeem most of the paladins away, meaning that now they're still not there to be shot at. So I don't necessarily want to clear the units I'm in combat with. Could take bolters and just leave it on that, but because we have the side cannon doesn't hurt us to take on this model, we still keep our combat weapon. I decided to go with the side cannon, so I had the 24-inch range to be able to hit a different unit that might be a smaller unit, might be a 5-man unit that's just an objective monkey or something like that. That's what this unit's able to do, and have the Grandmaster at the helm to give them that added punch. Paladin special rule now is that when they charge and they complete a charge, they get +1 to their damage. So that makes these guys 3 damage each and allows them to punch up into some tougher targets. And the lethal hits allow them to hit even tougher targets, hitting on 2s. It's a very nice combination for how these guys function. I did mention we are taking a 5-man squad of Terminators as well, of Paladins, I should say, because that's what they are. So we have a 5-man squad of Paladins. Now this squad, if you notice, is really not going to be the way I say it is. And that's simply because with this new book, I don't want to go breaking models. And I have a couple of painted side cannons already that I could swap onto these guys. But that needs to be kind of more of an aspect of, okay, I like this build. So now let's go ahead and make some modifications first. So we're still in the testing stages. So for this unit, the 2 with halberds are going to be counting also as having side cannons, since there are only 2 that have halberds in the unit. Once again, my Nemesis Warding Stave will be my Ancient with another side cannon. And then we have our Librarian. Oh, and then the guy with the hammer is going to be my Apothecary for this unit. Now, there is a Librarian who's going to be leading this unit. Librarians got a point reduction and a change to how their psychic power works now. It's D3 plus... Ooh, I have to look it up. It's a D3... I think it's D6 plus 3 shots. I'll have to look that up in a second here. Sorry, I don't have that committed to memory. But it is Strength 8, AP 2 damage, and it does not hazardous, which is nice, so we're not doing damage to our guys. Now, the Librarian gives this squad the 18-inch lone op ability, which is going to be nice so I can land this unit on an objective, complete an action, and know that this is a big, chunky Terminator unit. So it may not be something our opponent exactly wants to dedicate to, especially since they won't be able to have supporting fire going in there because they won't be able to target it outside of 18. The Librarian has the enhancement that gives this unit an additional AP in shooting. So now those side cannons are going to be coming in at AP2, the bolters are AP1, and his psychic ability will also be AP3. So this squad is going to be able to hit smaller areas and just kind of clear stuff off to help us in that point aspect. So I like these guys a lot. I like what the Paladins got for this new codex and everything. I'm very, very happy to see. I wasn't happy with the Paladins in the previous codex, or the index, I should say. I just feel like they were missing some stuff. Like, one, missing the Apothecary is a big deal. So having the Apothecary back is great. And being able to be something that can punch up and have that extra strength, I think is really nice. Not to mention being able to take this 8-man squad that I'm taking, that is a 90-point discount. That's huge when you really think about it. It's like, well, what is 2 extra dudes going to give you? Well, they give you 2 extra special weapons, yes. But 90 points saved is a big deal for these units that can resurrect guys to their unit for that with that Apothecary. The 5-man is something that's just going to be able to be aggressive. It's still a good rapid ingress target for late game, but it is a unit that can help me on secondaries and be something that's bulkier and not just be a little 5-man that's going to get knocked away by a strong gust of wind. Moving on with our big units, we have Castellan Crow and a 10-man squad of Purifiers. Here's where my flamers are at. So we have 4 incinerators in here with Castellan Crow and company. Now, the Purifiers now have AP2 on their Purifying Flame, which Crow gives them the boosted additional shot with that. And then they have the ability to reroll wound rolls against units on objective markers. They reroll 1s to wound otherwise. So when these guys land, they can target a unit that's on objective and just burn them to the ground and be a huge threat for Overwatch to go, well, Now what are you going to do if you move? This is a strong, strong Overwatch to then come at you. Another very strong play with them too is to be able to land them near a unit that's about to charge, maybe one that doesn't have the fire support to hurt them really. And when that unit goes to declare its charge, you then Overwatch it, potentially weakening that unit so much that it doesn't cause as big of an impact. So there's a lot of cool plays with these guys. They're, again, a big rapid ingress target, which is a lot of bigger Grey Knight units. And just their overall damage output is just super, super strong. So these guys are kind of been a staple for me. I love them in the index. And with all the boosts they've gotten now, I love them even more. So we're going to bring them led with Castle and Crow. Next up, we have 2 Grandmaster Dread Knights, and this will round out our big units. So we have 2 big units, one that's a kind of a big unit because it's Paladins in the 5-man with the Librarians. They're kind of a mid unit. And now we have 2 Grandmaster Dread Knights. Grandmaster Dread Knights have gotten a huge, huge boost going into this index. Number 1, instead of reducing command points by 1 to a minimal of 1, they now reduce it down by 1 just flat. Now, it is the same ability as the regular Grandmaster, so we can only do it once per battle round per the Grandmaster, whether it's the one on foot or a Dread Knight, but we can reduce it all the way down to 0. Once again, said it a couple times, rapid ingress, rapid ingress, rapid ingress. The Grandmasters also got a new weapon for their data sheet, which is actually a huge, huge weapon upgrade. For a long time, it's just been Psy Cannon, Silencer, and Incinerator. Now we have the Subliminator, which, as Lane and I have kind of de-evolved it. At first, it was the Subliminator, then it was the Sublime Tater, then it's the Tater Gun. So now it's just basically the Tater Gun or the potato gun on the side of the Dread Knight, which is just kind of our feeling about it. We're calling it the Tater Gun. Now, these Dread Knights will need a little bit of work to them. As I mentioned, they're not fully WYSIWYG, but they are fully painted, and 2 of my favorite ones, and they both have hammers. But again, this is a matter of if we go this route, I'll need to modify some missiles, even though the missile launcher is kind of worthless. I even took the time to look to see if it gave us access to the grenade strat or smoke. Sadly, no, nothing from that. So literally, it's really just kind of a bogus gun. Very, very small scenarios and windows where it could actually do damage. But otherwise, he's going to have Psy Cannon and the Subliminator. So this guy is going to be able to take on vehicles, doing one thing that Grey Knights kind of lack is having that ability to punch up. Dread Knights, when they can get Grandmaster Dread Knights, when they get going, can really start wrecking a bunch of vehicles all at the same time. With their special ability, and it is being modified as well, is just whenever they're in combat, it's not one model, it's not once per turn, it's not anything like that. It's just when they are in combat, they can reroll failed hits, wounds, and damage into monsters and vehicle. The hammer having D6 plus 1 damage means that these guys can do a ton of damage to a vehicle really quickly, all the way up to and including some Imperial Knights. And just, like I said, just all around, just absolutely clobber things. And then on top of that, with their guns. Now, the Subliminator, why we love this thing so much is it is a Melta weapon. It is 2 shots, strength 9, AP 4, D6 damage with a flat 4 on the Melta. It's also twin linked to give us that better shot at wounding. But the big part about it is that Melta 4. Now, granted, it is an 18-inch range. So when we deep strike, we are not going to be able to use the Melta factor of it. But with some good positioning, these guys could get into range where they're able to charge and shoot and everything. And a lot of the armies that we really want to emphasize that Melta range capability, things like Imperial Knights with pockets of armatures, these guys can really help pick up and clear that area quick, being able to get in range of shooting at one armature and then charge the other. So there's a lot of value out of these things. I think it's pretty much goes for saying the only downside you can really say to Dread Knights in this category is the fact that they're a character. So as you put in more characters, you run the risk of your opponent taking Assassinate. In this detachment, I have 5. So if my opponent wants to take Assassinate, they basically need to nearly table me in order to get all my characters out of here to get those 20 points. So I'm not too worried about that. And as you guys seen in other armies, I don't Assassinate doesn't scare me as much, especially with how the challenge cards work now. I know the hated word of 40K right now is challenge cards, but yes, it is a factor, so it does play into this. But I'm not too worried about that. I'm not too overly concerned. So yeah, 2 Grandmasters, big baby carriers, and these guys I think are going to be something that if you're looking to see what Grey Knights are going to do and what to worry about, I definitely think that 1 to 3 Grandmasters is going to be seen in the majority of list. It's almost an auto include, and it feels like 2 is the sweet spot. All right, moving on to the last pocket of models. This one I'm going to talk about these 3 at the same time because they kind of go hand in hand for what they're here for, and that is a 5-man squad of Interceptors, a 5-man squad of Strike, and a 5-man squad of Purifiers. All 3 are the exact same way. They have no special weapons, and they have all force weapon, they're close combat weapons. And the reason we went with that is because if you take a special weapon with these units, these infantry, they do lose their combat weapon. And in a lot of aspects, I'd rather they have the combat weapon than have the extra shooting, whether it's because for these guys, they can only take 1, or for the Purifiers, they could take 2. But with a lot of them, you're taking 1 incinerator, 1 side cannon. And realistically, I'd rather have that close combat weapon than the gun, especially since some of these units may be completing actions and really never get to use that combat weapon or use that gun. So this is kind of one of the things where I'm kind of messing around with and trying to figure out how I want to do this. The way I look at it is, Grey Knights, we do have the aspect of being able to teleport around the field and play secondary missions better than most armies in the game. And for that, though, we do need some small units that would be disposable. Bad, probably choice of words there, but more disposable units than others to complete actions. And even though Grey Knight units are expensive, so it's hard to say a disposable unit in Grey Knights, this is kind of the trifecta that I'm going with, and I think is the best loadout. Let me know what you think. So 1 squad of Interceptors, these guys have the move shoot ability. So they can shoot, they move 12 inches as like jump infantry, they can shoot, and then move again, meaning they can get onto objectives or zone out the map, making it difficult for our opponent to land somewhere. They might get gunned down, but they'll at least help keep some board presence so that we have places we can deep strike units in at other times. They also can reach out there and touch objectives so that if we need to complete early secondaries, we can. And also we have that presence to be on some of the primary missions early on in the game. The 5-man Strike are the only unit in our army that has, and actually I think about it more, I think the only way that we have sticky objectives in the entire book. I don't even think there's a strat or anything. Yeah, no, there isn't. No other way. So this is the only thing that does sticky. We have units picking up, bouncing all over the field. So having a unit that can sticky an objective and move away, to me, seems super, super valuable. These guys do not hit quite as hard as Purifiers do. They don't have the speed that Interceptors do, but having that sticky objectives is, to me, very, very valuable. These guys can hang out on the home field and kind of zone out during the early portions of the game. After our opponent dedicates their deep strikes and is kind of on board, we can then pick this unit up and go elsewhere and still hold our home field objective and start sticking other objectives with them. I like to call them the chasing the child around from room to room that likes to flip light switches on and off, and you're just constantly turning light switches off behind them. That's the game these guys like to play. So having 5 of them in here, I feel like 5 is kind of that's it. That's it. Like everything else with Strike, whether it's characters you attach to them or the abilities they have or the weapons they have, there's something else in this book that just does it better. The one thing these guys do is sticky objectives. So taking 5 of them seems very valuable to me, but not much more. And that takes me over to the last 5-man, which is a 5-man squad of Purifiers. So the Purifiers kind of going to play in that same role that the Strike do, as well as the Interceptors, being able to get out there, kind of hold open some zones, hold some objectives, and do that sort of thing. But these guys hit a bit harder with that rerolls to wound when fighting units on objectives. So for me, if we're in the thick of it and we're really getting into late portions of the game, both me and my opponent are running out of assets, and we're getting down to the nitty gritty of it, one of my more objective scoring units, being the Purifiers, could be a target to get rapid ingress back in late game, or just go on offense and actually be able to put that damage through. If a unit has a high OC value, it's not going to matter that these guys are OC1. They're going to need to do the damage to remove that unit anyways. So other things like Strike that are OC2 may not have enough OC by the time we get through combat, shooting, and everything else to take the objective, where destruction is the only answer. So that's why I kind of look at it with this 5, is that these 3 units are going to kind of help play my board control, play my zoning, but then later in the game have aspects for them, where the Interceptors are more part of the early game, the Strike mid to late game, the Purifiers play mostly into the mid game or the late game. These guys have kind of an aspect that they all kind of play off each other real well and allow my other units in my army to kind of go out there and gain control of the board through destruction. All right, that's it. That is there is one thing I did forget. I mentioned 3 enhancements. One of my Grandmasters, the one with the long cannon, he's going to have the enhancement that gives him, he targets a unit and does D3 mortal wounds. Add the points. Looks kind of cool. So we're going to use it and see if it actually matters. Just being able to plink a cup D3 mortal wounds, no roll. You just target it and say, look, you take D3 mortals. I think that's pretty good. So, all right, that is the list. So as I mentioned, there's a lot of thoughts going into this list. I put a lot of time into it, a lot of back and forth on what to bring, what not to bring, how to play this, how to play that. And now it still is the aspect of getting it on the table and actually playing it. So, and that's something I'm still considering, is like what goes in Deep Strike, what doesn't. So I would love some opinions on that, on what you guys how you guys decide your deep striking. For me, the way I look at it is with like the Paladin brick, the 8-man Paladin brick. If I put them on the table and I can pick them up, and if I go first, that means the earliest I can pick them up, it would be to drop them in on turn 2. If my opponent goes first, then I could drop them in on turn 1 and bring them into a better position on turn 1. So that unit actually kind of makes me feel like I should put the Paladins on the table. I also feel like I should put the Grandmasters on the table so my opponent doesn't get too aggressive and come flying at me to cover the whole board so I can't deep strike in. Now make it a little threatening that it's like, okay, if you want to push up like that, that's fine. But now the Grandmasters are going to be able to move up and start answering these things without having to deep strike in. The Purifiers and the 5-man squad of Paladins, I feel like are going in deep strike. Initial thoughts with the build. Granted, matchup to matchup, things may change, but I feel like those guys are the ones that want to go in deep strike. Since the Purifiers on board, they don't have an apothecary, they lose guys. So we want to make sure that when we're bringing them in and playing them, we don't do what I did last time and throw them away stupidly, and actually make sure they're in a good position, like I know how to play them and should have played them, but didn't last time. Making sure they're in a better position to be able to do some damage and really take control of most likely a flank, probably not center with them. And then as far as the Paladins, the 5-man squad is concerned, I could play them on table and put the 8-man in deep strike. And I could have them be a unit that gets, if my opponent goes first, because now I think about this other aspect of, if my opponent goes first, then when I go second, I'm not really going to want to go too crazy and get into someone's face with an 8-man squad of Paladins. Instead, I would want to take the squad of Paladins, get on an objective, and kind of start doing some work onto that, where the 8-man squad of Paladins could hang out in deep strike and get ready for that rapid ingress. So kind of back and forth in that. I don't feel like my opponent would really is going to make, and that's where the other aspect of it comes in too. If my opponent does get hyper aggressive, I could Mr. Demos them off the table and then rapid ingress them down and really mess with someone. But I feel like that's a game-to-game basis. So I'm not sure 100% on if I want to start the 5-man on board and the 8 in reserve, or put the 8 on the board and the 5 in reserve. So that's kind of one thing I'm going back and forth with. You guys can let me know what you guys kind of think with that in the comment section. I definitely think the Grandmasters belong on the table to start off, because they're definitely threatening. And I think there's very, very, very few things that would make me want to put them in deep strike to start, since they can be picked up and put in strategic at any point during the game at the end of my opponent's turn. So a lot there. But yeah, this is going to be my second going with it. Now we're dialing off the cutesy, crazy, fun, let's run 6 4-man squads of Terminators and see what happens list design. And now we're going deeper into the competitive aspect. As you can see, this is more like my army's fully ready to go. So this is where we go more into that pristine, what Grey Knights should probably play. And a lot of this comes not just my research, but it's also it is the research I put in. But a lot of that research comes not only from me, but from stuff I've seen on these different channels, on different forums and stuff that have been discussed. So that's why I'm posting this out here. So you guys who have been very active and are very passionate about Grey Knights like I am, we can start getting together and talk about this and kind of come together with this. And then maybe start to get, after we get this locked in of what's good of Grey Knights, then we can start looking at the cool, crazy stuff that we can do, since we have a book and we have a lot of options here. All right, guys. Well, that is it for today. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you again soon.